Fact and legend blend together in our historic lake region, nowhere more so than at the base of the lake itself. Let's explore the story of Wilsonville and see if we can reconstruct the town under the lake.
Hello, my name is Peter Becker, and I'm the Wayne County, Pennsylvania historian, as well as the managing editor of the News Eagle newspaper in Hawley. And I've done a lot of writing of local history topics over the years, and I've had quite an interest in this amazing little village that many people have hardly heard of, called Wilsonville. People who come to Lake Wallenpaupack today, they enjoy the lake up by the dam, they enjoy the dam, and they never know that what they're looking at was the site of a once prosperous industrial village. What is now the lake started out as a river going through the valley. It ended in a great waterfall that was 70 feet high. The falls cascaded approximately 3 miles heading towards what would become Hawley. It was a very lush valley with tall white pine and tall conifers, giant trees. As the Native Americans were well aware of the beauty of the Wallenpaupack River and its slow and moving waters, which is where the name Wallenpaupack came from. It all started way back in the 1700s. White colonists came along. They saw a good chance here for profit because they immediately saw those falls as a very potential source for hydropower to run mills. This theme would last up to this present day. Judge James Wilson, a founding father of the United States of America, he was a Scottish immigrant who became a lawyer down in Philadelphia. He was a fierce advocate for independence and became one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. After the war was settled, President Washington named him to the first United States Supreme Court. And when he retired, he came up and he had purchased a vast territory in northeast Pennsylvania called the Wallenpaupack Manor. It was 12,500 acres and included what would be Wilsonville.
In late 1830s, early 1840s, William Shouse purchased the land at the top of the falls, which by now had been drained and there was actually land that you could build there. And he built a very successful lumber mill. And Shouse did a very good business there. He was a very smart businessman. But he also sort of recognized that he was getting older, and he sold out to Farnham and Collingwood, which was a partnership of a guy from Honesdale, Farnham, and a guy from New York City, Collingwood. Farnham and Collingwood did a very good business again because there was strong demand until President Grant, he made the move to take the country's currency off the silver standard. Well, if there's no need for silver, the silver market crashes. If there's silver market that crashes, the little towns dry up. If the little towns dry up, there's no reason to have a railroad spur there, and suddenly the railroad companies, which had done a huge amount of investment in the West in new rail tracks and spur lines and so forth, found themselves overextended, and they went bankrupt like dominoes. And so that crash started the Great Depression of 1873, which was the largest depression felt in the United States at the time. It was devastating, and among other things, it reduced the market for lumber to the point where Farnham and Collingwood's once thriving sawmill became essentially worthless, and they both lost their shirts. That was the beginning of the end of Wilsonville. No longer a working sawmill, no longer having much income, became just another sleepy little spot along a road between here and there. In 1895, there were a group of investors from Philadelphia who recognized the value of the Wallenpaupack as a water power site. And they purchased the Shouse and Farnham and Collingwood site that was at the head of the falls. They filed a plan with the State Water Power Commission to form a 5,577.5 acre lake, which is very close to the size of the modern Lake Wallenpaupack. So that project failed. Then along came Colonel Watrous, who was an industrialist from Scranton, which leaves us at about 1914, when that project fell apart because the war in Europe made the entire economy turn down, and he couldn't build the electric railroad across the Pocono Plateau, which is what he intended to use the electricity for. And so the project went begging for a buyer. Until about 1922, when Pennsylvania Power and Light, which had recently formed in Allentown, was looking for sources for electricity, they finally bought the project, lock, stock, and barrel. Along the lines of things that are made possible by modern technology, side-scan sonar is one of the things that allows people to do archaeology that was not possible before. Sonar uses sound waves that are transmitted from a particular device and then bounce off things that are distant from them and then are received back. As the bottom contours change and as the type of bottom, mud, rock, whatever, change, you get back varying intensities of the sound, and that allows you to paint an image of what's on the bottom. Now, it's not an optical image, it's actually just a sound image. So something that looks bright in a sonar image is probably something that's hard, like a rock, which may or may not be actually bright when you look at it with light. And in fact, depending on what the silt and the bottom is like, it's possible to look at things that are under the bottom, things that have been covered up by silt, that wouldn't be visible at all if you drained the lake and went to look at them. The sonar images really do show us what's underneath the lake. So this is an image of the bridge across the Wallenpaupack. As you look at it, from the right is upstream, the left is downstream. And you can see the Pike County side is at the top and the Wayne County side at the bottom. And at the very bottom of that image, you can see some of the buildings that are there at that intersection in the middle of what we would call Wilsonville. This is another view of the dam. The large center supports, those little dots are actually supports that they added when they increased the size of the bridge to accommodate the heavy construction vehicles. This is actually a sonar image of what you could consider downtown Wilsonville. The various little bright areas are stone walls that form the foundations of the buildings. And if you compare that to the pictures or the maps, you can actually make sense of what's there. About a third of the way down, you see the road to the west, and the foundation of the White House is just to the right, about midway up the page. One of the reasons to go back and revisit history is that we're always finding new things. There can be new physical evidence, there can be documentary evidence, and especially as the internet has taken hold of things, it's much, much easier to do research now than it was in the past.